Congratulations.
Delighted to see you. It's been a while.
Congratulations to you on your award.
Thank you very much.
Much deserved.
Thank you. I am grateful to people like you who have supported me. And congratulations on being a trustee on the Pallium India board.
Thank you. Thank you. Hard work pays, Bhavna. I have done nothing in your journey. It's just, it makes a difference to work hard.
You're always kind and generous. It is my delight to have this conversation with you again. We've had these conversations one on one and in our sessions so many times. Dr. Rajam Iyer is a renowned palliative care physician, someone I have deep admiration and affection for, not just because of her expertise in her subject, but in the way that she conducts herself in her personal life, as well as makes continued efforts to educate people around this complex idea of palliative care and palliative care beyond cancer. So there is a history around palliative care and what it means, and therefore myths around that. And increasingly, there has been, an effort by thought leaders like herself to expand the scope of palliative care and make sure that we can reach a very wide population. Caregiver Saathi has been graced by Dr. Rajam on so many occasions, and we are delighted to have her as an ambassador, an advisor, and a personal friend.
My pleasure entirely.
We have Zaver and Gaurav and Dona right now, but you know that family caregivers don't have time to attend live sessions. So, what we do is we put these sessions together and help people access them asynchronously at the time that they will need in a form that will be valuable for them,
Got it.
right? Tell us something, Dr. Rajam, about your association with aging in seeing people around you age, and then even your own relationship with aging first.
So, I am second born in my house. I have an older sister who is 8 years older to me. And she actually left home when she was 21 after getting married, and she went to New Zealand, and subsequently she went down under in 1984. Um, so I was all of 14 when she left, and I had this set of parents who were touch wood, very young for at that time. Mom was only 45 and dad was 55 and still working. And I was a completely ignorant, irresponsible, probably irritating teenager. So I think I basically enjoyed the fact that my sister had left home. The whole bedroom was for myself, and it was free time. It was like great. I mean, it's only going to be me at home. My dad actually continued to work for the next 10 years, so he's very, very active in at work. And mom was what do you say, a social butterfly. All her siblings lived in the same suburb, so we had cousins coming over. When I joined med school, I used to have med school outstation friends who used to come over every weekend to eat mom's food. So we had 8, 10 people at any given point of time for a meal. So it was fun. It was really lots of fun. And mom and dad picked up all the slack and cleaning and cooking and serving and entertaining. So the house was like a complete bachelor pad. Subsequently, I finished my MBBS. It was great fun, then got into MD. That's when I really learned the sense of responsibility because I was on call. At 2022, you're responsible for somebody's life, especially at 2 a.m., you're on your own and you have to make those decisions. My seniors actually discouraged us from calling them at that time, and it used to be really what you decide at that time or help from anybody else who's on the campus who's old enough to help you and give you the valid suggestion. So I think that's when it really hit me. about the kind of job I was doing, because MBBS was really, all fun and trying to pataw boys and, stay up late and enjoy hostel life. So MD is what really taught me about responsibility. And after my MD, I worked in Sion Hospital, where even today I feel that that really kind of opened my world to suffering, because here I was a lecturer in Sion Hospital, and used to be responsible for people's admissions, their care, their discharge home, also to see in what condition and quality of life they were getting home. So it was not easy to go through that phase of seeing patients who are poor, uh, did not affording medical care, and probably not even basics of life like food and water and shelter, and going through such major illnesses, which such stoic and a very different level of self-respect. So I think science kind of shaped me to be the doctor I am today. Having said that, it was at home I realized that by the time I was 26, my dad was, ready to retire. He was 66. And that's when the journey started, that I probably inherited an older set of parents. When Akka left home, they were very young, they were full of energy. And then that was the time that my parents started looking out for a match for me at 26, saying, and we match horoscopes, etc. So there was this matrimonial exchange and horoscope exchange, and all sorts of things started. But that's when I realized slowly that my parents were getting old, in the sense issues like eye complications, a little bit of imbalance, and all the issues with aging. And mom, of course, had osteoarthritis, so she had knee pain, etc. But still, they never depended on me. I led a completely carefree life, even post MD. I managed to go abroad to do my MRCP. They were still in very good health in their mid late 60s and late 70s. It's only after I got married in the year 2017 is when their decline really started. And by then, mom was 70 and dad was 80. And
Mm-hmm.
the dad had been a diabetic then by 40 years, and mom had just started Parkinson's. And here I was on the threshold of leaving home and leaving them all alone. And it was very, very hard, because I was with them when they were at the peak of youth. And I really had a good time thanks to their encouragement. Not once they made me realize that I should cut short any of my joy. So I had the best childhood and the best youth, with respect to coming home late, going on picnics, all the freedom. And the time when I was leaving home is when it really hit me that both of them had chronic illnesses which would never get cured. uh, then for post marriage, I actually moved to Hong Kong, and actually that's the stage where I inherited two more senior citizens, because my father-in-law was then 83 and mother-in-law was 78. So I had 75, 78, 80, 83, and I had to leave the country for about 2 years. And that is when I realized that every morning and every evening I used to be on this Skype session to see how well they are doing, because phone calls were not enough. I needed to see how they walk, how they talk, what they've eaten, have they lost weight, and those issues, because they were also living without a child, which they never had. Right? I was always there till I was 40 at home. Even if I was in and out, I was still going back home to them. And that's the time when I think the slippery slide started. Alternatively, my husband's father, then my dad, my mom took ill, and we decided to relocate to Mumbai in 2010. Uh, and I was trying to find my feet in my career at that time, and I realized I didn't want a full-time job. And anyway, I was busy. I had mum's two cataracts, two knee replacements, lymphedema. So it was roller coaster after 2010 till dad had a stroke in 2015. And that's the time, I sat next to him. We decided not to do anything as a family. And on hindsight, after his passing away, realized that what we did as a family was basically keep him comfortable, clean, safe, and happy. And on reading an article by Dr. Rajagopal in the June of 2016, about 8 months after Appa had passed away, I realized that there is a specialty called palliative care. So till then, I knew nothing about it. I was already 20 years an MD and knew nothing about it. That's how the training focuses on palliative care in our country.
Yeah.
And that's when I took myself to Kerala and trained myself with Dr. Rajgopal, and then the fellowship in palliative care with IPM in Calicut. And subsequently, I did my master's from Cardiff, actually diploma from Cardiff University in healthcare, in palliative medicine for healthcare professionals. So that's where my journey actually unfolded. It is with experiences what I saw, but actually I didn't even realize what I was doing till I read the book Being Mortal, met Dr. Rajgopal, and went through all this training. And yeah, so it's still very up and close. I have a 91-year-old mom-in-law and an 86-year-old mom now, and which is probably the reason why I will be, relocating soon to Chennai, because I think it's the time for both the moms to be in the same city so we can give them the best time, care, and quality of life.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing that. How does it feel to have shared your story?
I am glad I'm not tearing up.
Yeah, yeah.
It's nice to
It's,
be able to look after elderly, but it does drain you.
yeah.
And I think the fact that they get more and more dependent, and not just physically, emotionally, um, psychologically, and it's constantly playing on your mind when you take a break, when you're out of the house, and the kind of person that I am, I think I end up calling them so many times. I don't think it helps, which is exactly what I tell my patients not to. And then it's very hard to practice what you preach.
You know, this quality of yours of making yourself so human is so endearing, because you kind of sometimes put experts on a pedestal and say, oh my god, here's the expert, or here's the person who must be acing it in her personal life. But to come out and be vulnerable and say, listen, I might be saying this, but when I have to practice it, it's not so easy.
It is hard.
Yeah, no,
And
and
hats off to people who caregive for years and years, at whatever age group, whether it's a child who's not well, or a spouse, or elderly, or I know. And now through my journey, I've met people who even look after uncles and aunts. I think
yeah.
that requires so much more, I don't know, bandwidth. I mean, I'm sure they've invested a lot for them, and they feel it good enough to return. But I've seen children who don't look after their parents sometimes, and then you have these nieces and nephews who kind of group up together to look after single aunts and uncles, and it's extremely heartwarming.
Yes, it is. I mean, yeah, your faith in humanity is restored, and in many ways, you feel that perhaps that's the reason that one is really alive, not just to earn money to pay bills and to afford luxuries.
Yeah.
That is important too, but that has a place. So for our conversation, Rajam, one of the things that I'd like to first talk about is the emerging field of geriatric care, or geriatricians. We find, especially for example, myself, I have been keen to find specialists who are geriatric care specialists, and it's been so hard to find good ones, to find any to start with, and then good ones. And then on top of that, sometimes you want someone who's close by, because you're dealing with older adults and they are not friendly with digital communication. So please tell us first about geriatricians, geriatric care, and then the intersection with palliative care.
So unfortunately, the specialization of geriatrics is probably not very popular in this country. Having said that, it is now picking up. We probably have one or two or three in the city of Mumbai, which is not enough at all. Uh, as a
Oh.
specialization and a post graduation, I don't think it's a specialty yet. It's just a fellowship that people
Mm.
end up doing, unlike the West, where there is a specialty in the US called as geriatric medicine, and in England called as care of the elderly. It's called COT in the
Mm-hmm.
UK. There isn't a
Mhm.
specialized geriatric branch in the country. It is much needed
Oh,
because I think, as per statistics, India is supposed to be a grey nation by 2050. There are articles suggesting that 60-year-olds will increase by 300% and 80-year-olds, so like you and me, will increase by a whopping 700%.
yes, I'm familiar with that
People
statistic. Yeah.
will are living longer. When I did my MBBS in 1986, I never saw an 80 and 90-year-old as a patient.
Yeah.
Even in
Yeah.
MD, maybe it was a lower socioeconomic society that I was treating, so they were not. But now, even in lower socioeconomic, so in my maid's families, there are elderly
Yeah.
grandmothers, and every household in a fairly
Yeah.
white collared society has an 80 or a 90-year-old. So the need
Yeah.
is very much there. I'm not so sure we need people to be trained specifically, but we need to train doctors to be aligned to the needs of geriatrics. So I'm not sure whether we need to create a whole specialty, but we need them to be aligned. So in the general wards these days, you will find elderly. So we really need to align our training as per the needs of geriatricians. And what I feel is important here is it again is the focus is a lot on the physical needs. While I
Mm.
think for geriatrics, loneliness, emotional, psychological, financial, and social is as important as physical. I have seen that with my mom. The day she has friends or extra phone calls or more footfalls or she has achieved something really lovely in the kitchen, she actually forgets her physical ailments and she's a much happier human being. So you realize how all these aspects of life are equally important, whether you have a backache or a headache or a constipation. When you meet people, when you meet like-minded people, when you talk, have an interesting conversation, or go down and see something, a person who's really very kind or cooperative, it really does, kind of elevate your level of happiness. So I think that training is anyway not there in medical school for a person to actually identify. It's not just chest pain, breathlessness, cough, this, that. How that person is coping with all those conditions and how his life has changed because of these conditions is something we are just not trained to ask. So I think training as such needs to change, which an attempt has been made by the medical colleges, where they have the attitude, ethics, and communication models now from September 2019, hoping to create kind, compassionate, empathetic doctors. I think that itself will make them more attuned to the needs of elderly. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the probability of death is much more anyway with advancing age. So doctors need to get comfortable in having difficult conversations about death and dying with
Mhm.
an elderly who walks into their clinic as to what they think of death and dying. Two, how can we support them in an emergency so that we are at least ready with some kind of goals of care, you know,
Right.
and an advanced directive, even if it is verbal. Though
Mm.
we are encouraging people to sign advanced medical directives, not everybody is very competent, or not everybody has the capacity to process, analyze, and to actually sit and write. I don't want 1, 2, 3, 4. Some people are nervous about it. It's not easy to think. It's not easy to think about it, especially when you're in good health, that
Mm.
this and this can happen to you. So even elderly, so even if you have an 80-year-old who's in very good health,
हेलो
very rarely.
इसी के लिए कर रहा था गारंटी वारंटी के लिए
Hello.
अ,
So it is difficult and it's a tricky topic to discuss also about. I think this is another area where doctors need to be trained how to talk and trained how to talk about death and dying. It's an extremely sticky word and very difficult for doctors to say because we really consider ourselves as saviors and people who only cure. And the fact that we need to be here to mitigate suffering is something very different. And I think a lot of the suffering can be avoided when we have these conversations well in advance so that people are more prepared for an emergency, because it's in an elderly, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And that is very important.
Yeah, I mean, it's often said that death is perhaps the only guarantee that one comes with. But it is a difficult topic. Also, socioculturally, there is the whole thing. And to reiterate what you just said, doctors over years have been groomed to believe that your job is to save a life. And so, what does that saving a life mean or look like? Has had its repercussions. Now, given that geriatric care is new or emerging, or it requires a certain outlook for doctors, I would think that a large amount of care then becomes the responsibility of the family caregivers. And family caregivers, in the absence of experts, are probably learning along the way, and sometimes making mistakes along the way, or not having enough expertise. So while there are a few geriatric specialists, and perhaps a general physician is a good enough person who has a sensitivity to geriatric care, I do know that some people are making some efforts to make sure that general physicians are attuned to geriatric needs. I think the responsibility on family caregivers would be that how do we identify the right doctor or the right expert for the older adults that we have to care for, especially when we are caring for older adults that don't live in the same city. And many of us are, because of work in different cities, so we have to set up systems. So I would like for you to help us identify and select a suitable general physician or a geriatric care doctor. What should be our approach?
So I completely agree that unfortunately in our country, the responsibility does fall on the caregivers. And therefore, my request to caregivers is to always ask questions. Go with the prepared list. First of all, make your questions. So let me get back to the first to the bottom line. If you have elderly people either living with you or in another city or in another country, first important thing is to have a conversation with the elderly folk. It is very easy to sit and have a chat with your parents as to the fact that, I am concerned. Everything has to be from the reason why you're having the conversation. I am concerned because I live away, or I can see that you are, now not able to do one, two, three, four, or that you need more time, effort, or assistance to do one, two, three, four. So I would like to have this rather difficult conversation, but please let me know when you're ready for that. And you need to talk to your own elderly about what they would like to do in case they fall very sick in an emergency. Do they want to go to hospital? Would they like aggressive treatment, or would they like comfort care? This might raise more questions. Why are you asking this? What kind of emergency do you think it is? So you can name a few, like say a fall in the bathroom, or you have some cardiac issue, or you have a stroke, or some things. Because you're a diabetic, you might have these cardiac complications, or hypertensive, you might have this. Let it be in any emergency. You need to tell me how I would should be treating you, and I should be supporting you. So depending on what their wishes are and desires are, we need to align with that and make a plan. So if they want to go to a hospital, they want to be given that chance, fair enough. You therefore need to identify a GP who will come to do a home visit, who will then say, yes, this merits hospitalization. So you need to identify a local hospital, and you need to identify a doctor they can go to, which could be their cardiologist, which could be their diabetologist, which could be anybody. And then those numbers of the cardiologist secretary or diabetologist secretary should be stuck on the fridge, so that the other partner or the maid or whoever that is can actually connect with them. You need to have numbers of the ambulance. You need to have all those requirements stuck on the fridge in bold letters so that anybody can contact for help, including helpful neighbors, helpful watchmen. And you should keep, if your parents are like fairly old, like 75, 80, it doesn't pinch to keep a wheelchair also. It just makes life much more easier to access the lift and to access the car if there is no ambulance. So all these details should be there. This background homework must be done. If the family elderly does not want to do emergency care, etc., then you really need to see to that you have this conversation with the GP. The GP should know that this is what the parent wants, and in case of any emergency, you will be the first point of contact. That is the GP, and the GP and the child, wherever he is, should have a conversation about what to do next, whether to take the next plane home. Well, I'm going to try and keep him comfortable here, etc., etc. That needs that conversation. The other thing which I feel largely amiss and elderly find difficult is to hire help, because they find it difficult to spend that kind of money, and to the safety issues. So before the safety issues, it is very sensible to keep a CCTV. So everybody knows they are being watched, including the help. Second thing is to inform the secretary and the watchman that you have elderly parents living alone. The local police station in Mumbai actually encourages people to report elderly staying home so that they can also have a check. So at least you know all these things are ticked before you keep. And obviously, you please keep through an agency, you do due diligence, you have your Aadhaar, you should have a copy, you should have a copy of the phone number, and obviously you should have been a part of the recruitment when before the the senior citizens are taken care of this domestic help. And so if you find that domestic, yeah.
I would recommend a proper police verification actually.
Yes.
And there is a proper police verification that is done. And even if an agency recommends that they are doing a police verification, it is worthwhile to get into the detail of the police verification.
Yes, sure. And therefore, I think the CCTV, police verification, the Aadhaar, all this is important. And obviously, you should have met that person before. It's not some random person who's just walking into your house to look after your parents or elderly. So I think if the conversation is the most important, and align your help directed towards that conversation so that you can be rest assured that, of course, during an emergency, you will need to get there for other emotional, financial reasons, and for your own reason of wanting to be with your parent, but at least keep them safe in their environment, so that, and also have this clarity that this is what we are going to do. If it doesn't happen, great. But if it happens, at least we all know we've gone through that Reiki of what comes next and what comes next. And I really think having that conversation is a huge icebreaker, and it really settles you, because children then don't feel guilty about doing excessive aggressive treatment. I have never asked, but how can I not let this? How can I not do this for my
Yeah.
father?
Yeah.
But the point is, you had 85 years or 92 years to ask your parent, and you never did, because these are difficult conversations. Once you open the Pandora's box, you might be also scared that the parent says, why don't you only come back?
Hmm.
It's difficult to answer these questions, and parents are too old for them to be relocated.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
even that is important, because again, when parents are together, they still derive strength from each other. When there is a
Hmm.
single parent left, then they start thinking, oh God, now what am I going to do? So suddenly you see an 85-year-old Tam Bram auntie getting packed to go to -4 degrees in Chicago. It just doesn't make sense. Plan this from before, because this is going to happen. Like you said, death is inevitable, and we should be avoiding bad death. There has to be better planning. How all of us plan for a retirement. We budget for a daughter's wedding. We budget for a school education. We need to budget for these things.
As you were speaking, I was reminded of somehow, I don't know what the connection is, but I was reminded of how children are trained for earthquakes in
Correct.
Japan. Right now, they are expected. So you just have a
Drill.
routine, and there will be an alarm, and you know that you will do a set of things, and so it builds your muscle to manage the eventuality as and when it should
Correct.
happen. So there is a drill, and there is an infrastructure, and it's in place. And I do think that having these conversations is really hard. I remember my time, I was relatively young. It's a very poignant part of my story But my dad wanted to have that conversation with me, and I just didn't have the
Bandwidth.
capability to, or the, and I didn't have a support system that I could have that with. And I think it was a little traumatic because for I'm just giving myself an excuse that I was much younger. But I think in the course of life, if we do have the blessing of older adults living a full life, then I do think that, I'm reminded of my grandmother. My grandmother was very particular about a good death. And in our rituals, there are a set of things that must happen. And not only would she participate in others, did she taught my mother all the things that she wanted on her death.
Hmm.
She was in 1977, she had vowed to donate her eyes. And I remember as a child, she had told me that I carry this card with me and I would like to donate my eyes. And I want you to know this. I was a little girl. I was 3 years old, 77 or thereabouts. But she had, in my growing years, told me this. So on the day she passed, I knew that this was a cherished desire that she had. So, of all the things that was supposed to be done, my mother had done everything except this one. And I had actually asked my cousin, I said, no, my grandmother wanted her eyes to be donated. So, please help me organize. Yeah. Because I had forgotten that during my dad's time. And he also said, oh, she was much older and will that be of any use and blah blah. I said, I don't care, get the medical person home, let them decide. And to cut a very long story short, basically we were able to donate her eyes despite many issues. And today's technology is such that one cornea, right, one cornea can help 4 people.
Yeah.
It is such an important thing. And we think that you need to be young to donate eyes. It is just not true.
So this reminds me, Bhavna, of what you said earlier. You said earlier, socio-culturally.
Yeah.
Somewhere I think our ancestors lived better, died better, and were much more progressive. Somewhere along this development thing and modern medicine, we've become very selfish in wanting to live longer, share less. Organ donation has become such a challenge that even 92.7 FM is to scream through rooftops to make people organ donate. Why are we burning organs which are perfectly viable to make a young adult live life again? So, somewhere modern medicine has, or development has made us selfish societies where even our forefathers, like I always tell this in almost all my talks, that I've heard my grandfather say, Anayasena maranam vina dainiyena jivanam. I want to die a death without suffering and a life without illness. That's what he used to pray every morning. But
Mm.
here we are like, सब कुछ करो, आईसीयू भी लेके जाओ, वेंटिलेटर पे भी डालो, सब जगह से नली डालो और जिंदा रखो. Is that what we want? So, I don't know what it is. It's not that even our religious books don't mention it. Even Bhagavad Gita says you need to let go. Quality of life is important to quantity. We have just interpreted it wrongly. The corporate hospitals have played their game differently. Training has changed. Modern medicine saying, I can keep you alive, even if it's on an ECMO, but you'll be breathing. But so I don't know what has changed. Like you spoke about your grandmother, my grandfather, and they might have been contemporaries. Look at how progressive they were. They were ready to donate organs. They knew they didn't want to go down the aggressive way. But somewhere with everything being discovered more and more that we know to do to save lives, we have completely forgotten on the quality of life. It is Sada Yushman Bhava, live forever, which can be with even not in a physical form.
Yeah, that's true. I am, I'm very keen that we speak about so the idea and the responsibility of family caregivers. The responsibility of family caregivers is to bring up the conversation, to bring in stories. One of the things Dr. Raj said in our conversation was uh, use these conversations as a conversation starter. So people who are attending, they could always go to their families and say, you know what, I attended this session.
Yeah.
And in that session, this came up. Seed the thought, let it marinate.
Yeah.
The conversation doesn't have to happen on the same day.
True.
And you can always pick it up a little later and say, so I was just thinking, what would you like? How does this play out for you? Or this is what I have chosen for me. And these are not easy conversations for
And
sure.
they're not one
But
point conversations, Bhavna. They evolve. Sometimes while watching a movie, there's some scene or a movie about a person requiring a lot of need or bedridden, and then you can just start off at that point. And please, another very important, sometimes, like you said, the elderly, like your father, wanted to talk about it. Don't miss that opportunity.
yeah.
Don't brush it under the carpet and say, hey, kuch nahi hoga, sab kuch acha hoga. Something must be in their thought process that they are trying to say. Listen to them. I think that could be a great cue if, especially, they are wanting to have that conversation. I don't think we should sush them up.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, if only I could relive that moment. I can't, but but what I can for sure do is tell many others who might have that opportunity is to pick it up, or if it comes your way, to make the most of it. Um, what I'd like for you to help our audience understand is what is palliative care? A large number of people, including yesterday, I was having a conversation with someone who said, isn't palliative care end of life care? Yeah.
So this is something that I think the palliative care world is trying to battle with. First of all, with the terminology palliative care, because most people say, I'm not ready to die, or am I going to die? Why are you sending me to this person? So I think the word palliative itself has a negative connotation to most people. Having said that, since in the late 60s, it began with looking after advanced cancer patients, even till date, it is thought that palliative care is meant for cancer patients who are dying. So, palliative care, by definition, actually only means addressing health related suffering for the patients and the caregivers. It is
Right.
irrespective of the prognosis, it is irrespective of the diagnosis. It is depending on the need of that human being. A particular person, yeah, Bhavna, you wanted to say something.
Please differentiate between prognosis and diagnosis.
So, when you've diagnosed a patient, say, to have a stroke or a heart attack or a neurological degenerative condition, that is, there are certain diagnoses, say like Parkinson's, MND, say a massive myocardial infarction or a heart attack, where the diagnosis itself is enough to start a conversation about comfort care and supportive care.
Right.
Irrespective of that, and irrespective of how, see, there are some patients who live with a chronic illness, say diabetes or blood pressure. They lead a fairly good life with medication, exercise, doctor visit, medication, exercise, doctor visit, blood test, and then suddenly there is a dip, right? So when that person has a dip, that's when the doctor is able to say things are not looking good, or there's an emergency, I don't think he's going. So it's not only that phase. So it's palliative care actually is for perfectly curable conditions, even like tuberculosis. It's just that today, if I'm labeled to be TB, I must say, oh God, how did this happen? Why did this happen? And what did I do? I have to take so many medications. I cannot go out in public. So many things you're battling with. I cannot go to work. Where what happens to my wages? So it is irrespective of what you're diagnosed with, or irrespective of how your disease is going to progress. That's prognosis. Whether you're going to be better, same, or worse. It is irrespective of that. It is a need of the human being. I am not coping, or I don't have the money to treat this big illness. Or look, I am okay, but what is going to happen to the rest of my family? Or I'll tell an example of a very senior head of department of KEM neurosurgery whom I met 2 months ago, who was actively dying with multiple issues. And when I first met him, he spent the first 5 minutes weeping to tell me, Rajam, please find me a domestic help. My domestic help of 25 years is threatening to quit. I am lost. I don't know what to do, and I am so sick. This was his first thing. He didn't even worry about his illness. The first thing in his mind was, how will my wife cope? I will be gone. Help will be gone. She knows nothing. She's not street smart, and she happened to be 5 years older than sir. She doesn't know the bank account number. She doesn't know how to operate an ATM. What is going to happen? So it is completely not only medical. It is about everything else in your life. So it is a need. The way people suffer health related, when I am gone, what happens to my wife? What happens to my child? Or education, marriage, so many things that's playing up in the person's mind. And it's not just focused on patients, it's caregivers too. We appreciate and acknowledge that caregivers play a vital role in the well being of patients. Without a
Yeah.
caregiver, the patient cannot do well. Emotionally, physically, psychologically, socially, financially, the patient is lost. So it's not just the professional caregivers. Yes, people can hire lots of help, but you can see the joy of family members when they're looked after by family caregivers. It's not easy, but even the fact that the son or the daughter can manage to spend your 5, 10, 15 minutes in the morning or in the night, it makes a difference to that caregiver, to the patient, as to him being looked after. So I think the definition of palliative care is to address and acknowledge health related suffering for patients and caregivers, which is not just physical, it is the holistic care to treat the family, because a family suffers as a unit when there's one person who is not well.
In a very interesting way, as a part of my processing my grief around losing my dad young, one of the things that came up for me was, um, you know, at least we knew that it's very finite. And when you know that it is very finite, you can pack it up. I know so many people who got, so diagnosis, as you have explained, is knowing what is it that you're contending with. So a definition, a label, this is MND, this is multiple sclerosis, or this is whatever. So that's a diagnosis. Prognosis is an anticipation of how this particular condition will progress. And therefore, what could be the duration, what could be the deterioration, if at all, that is prognosis. So, knowing a certain finiteness had its, paradoxical benefits. Like in the film Anand, you knew that the person is going to go, so he packed his days with moments of joy.
But it
I know
can
so
both
many.
ways, Bhavna. It can go both ways. I don't think, it's very special if your father actually lived up to every moment, like how he did in Anand. But I have seen many people watching, walking into there, knowing that death is 6 months away, 8 months away, be very depressed and very, very sad, and make everybody else equally sad. It can work both ways. Having said that, you
For sure.
also, sorry, I forgot to complete that about the active dying. So, like I said, it's holistic care for patients and caregivers. And for us to achieve that support, we need time. So, we really need an early referral to palliative care, because there's little we can do towards the end of life. And that is in terms of keeping the patient comfortable, but and handholding the family. But a lot of decisions, conversations, quality of life talks can happen when we have time with the patient and build a rapport with the patient and the family. So early palliative care for all conditions, and all for palliative care, irrespective of age, diagnosis, prognosis. Just anybody who's not coping is fine. And the earlier the referral, the better. Yes, palliative care helps in end of life, and also after the patient has passed away, who are hand-holding relatives. So that's the entire spectrum where busy consultants really don't have the time to sit and intervene. So that kind of completes that. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Not at all. I think that thank you for bringing the conversation back, because I think now there is a full understanding. And what I'd like to say is that one of the things that we as family caregivers may overlook, especially when caring for others, is our own decisions. What is to say that, there have been some heart-rending cases that we know of where the caregiver, for some reason, has passed on unanticipated and unplanned for, and there are people who are older or ailing and things are not taken care of.
Yeah.
So referring back to Dr. Raj's conversation and to what you're saying, it is not just important to have that crucial conversation with others, but to have it for yourself.
Yes.
We can for sure do that. So, what I'd like for you to teach us or tell us is um, how, as you age, so you spoke about caring for older adults, but you and I are aging as well. And how, as you age, how do you care for yourself? And what would you recommend to family caregivers? And then we will open it up for some questions.
Excellent. So yes, this has been a big, point in my life. My husband turned 60 last year, and
Mm,
that's when I thought to myself, now I am married to a senior citizen, and it really does make a difference that,
right,
and considering the fact that we don't have a next generation. However, I don't think that's a qualification to be looked after. I don't even want the next generation to spend the kind of time we have caring for elders. But, so we need to plan differently in the sense
right,
we definitely, it's also to start with where you want to be as you are growing older. And for
right.
me, I don't think this metropolis comes up as number one. I think
Mm,
my parents survived the city of Mumbai because I was there to run around, organize, send help, send dabba, be there myself, etc. And this place is cutthroat for elderly. So
right.
I really think one needs to go to a smaller place, to a slower place. So you need to start thinking of that when you still can and when you
Mm,
are still able to move. So I think first is the geography with respect to weather, food, friends, family, support that you have in a new city. So that is one. That is why that's the first move that's happening shortly. Second is, of course, health. Strongly believe that health is wealth and we all need to move. So physical activity, very, very important. Half an hour, 40
right.
minutes a day, 5 days a week is not much. One TV serial minus for your everyday. If you spend that much time doing whatever you enjoy, whether it's the pool, the gym, walk, uh, you know, game of badminton, tennis, pickleball, whatever it is, some activity. We need to move. The more you move, the more good quality life. I'm not saying you live longer. The time you live well. The other
Yeah.
important thing is after the age of 40, you lose muscle mass. So you need some weight training. It cannot just be walking, etc. You need some basic. I'm not saying build biceps, but you need some amount of weight training so that you retain your muscle mass because every year after the age of 40, you do lose muscle mass. So some physical activity, yes. Weight training, yes. Third thing is I'm not going to say lose weight, etc., but I think fitness is important. So
Mm,
you need to eliminate, for example, if you enjoy eating hearty meals, then you really need to balance it with exercise, etc., so that you don't gain unnecessary weight from what you are. But at the same time, if you feel that you're not able to exercise that much, then like a supply demand chain, you need to cut down on the intake. So you are what you eat. So you need to focus as in mindful eating, in mindful in what you're eating, when you're eating, how much you're eating, and how nutritious it is. So it's okay to junk. You must have fun time. It's fairly okay to drink moderate amounts of alcohol as far as you're in control. Uh, Ideally not every day of the week, but ideally stop smoking, stop tobacco because it has zero health benefits. And what is important is to focus. So I'm not saying like become this big thing of eating quinoa. I will eat. No, I don't think that's needed. Be moderate. Eat what you have grown up with. But at one point I could eat 5 idlis, which mom used to make, but now it's become two. But enjoy the two. It shouldn't be that you don't eat the idli at all. that shouldn't happen. Enjoy what you do. So eat in moderate portions. Eat, like for example, again, understand the body well. There is less digestion that happens after 6:37, after the sunset. So avoid big meals after that. So breakfast like a king, lunch like a queen, dinner like a beggar, early dinner, post dinner walk. So the more active you are, you also realize your brain functions better. You are more happy with endorphins. Body is like a machine. The more you oil it, the more you use it, the more flexible it's going to be. So these are the small tips I try to. Having said that, I have not achieved a 10 on 10. I'm still, it's work in progress, but at least we hope that we are well enough. As it is, you can see that in our generation, Bhavna, when you go step out with your child, you sometimes don't realize the age gap or the generation gap between the mother and the child. Like how it was for me and my mom. Of course, I had an older sister. My parents were much older for me compared to the parents of my peers. Having said that, now the difference is very less. The parents are probably 20, 22-year-old or 25-year-old older than, and they dress up differently. Life has changed. So it's not that you can see the stark difference between one generation to the other. But having said that, I think all need to listen to our body, slow down emotionally, find time to meditate, find time to read, put away the screens, and engage in human interactions, especially for women. That has shown to be very, very positive of having your peer group interactions. Go on your lunch, ladies, meet for movies. That also helps you build your, you know, quality time and, you know, what do you say? Experience your aging much more interestingly. So I think these are all the things I do. Like, we plan for lunches quite often. I know it doesn't materialize, but still, even there's fun in planning. The thought of meeting that person and then looking at the menu or deciding the venue, these things gives you little joy in life.
For sure. I think the building your social and emotional infrastructure
Yes.
beyond your family is, I think, very replenishing. It is, a moment of joy. It gives you a little story to talk about as well. Or, like, I met so and so, and here's what transpired. And, whether or not you may, but at least and of course, some kind of a hobby. It's really important to
That
have.
I think needs to start from a childhood. I feel very difficult to develop a hobby at 50. So,
Yeah.
say music or say reading books or even playing a sport or singing, instrument, embroidery, that has to start early. It's very hard. Like, I will not be able to thread a needle now with my eyesight. So, I will never be able to do, embroidery. But hobby development has to be something inculcated early, which you can probably spend more time around your 50s. But I think it's very, very important to have your, again, relationships like wine mature with age. So if you have
Right.
long-term friendships, nurture
Yeah.
them. It's very, very rare and special to have them. Keep in
Yeah.
touch. And these days, keeping in touch is not difficult. You just have to prioritize. I don't think anybody is that busy. It's all about priorities. So even a message, a WhatsApp call, email, if the person is somewhere else, time difference, if you want to do it, you will and can do it.
I'm sure this is a topic that we can talk about for a very long time. And I'm just mindful of time, and Zaver is here, who had a question. And I'm going to let her ask that question as she's caring for an older adult. I think there is often sometimes anxiety or resentment or the challenge of caring for oneself, right? Like, because we all just keep having one person after another, the number of people caring is much less. Zaver, do you want to specifically speak about your question?
Hi, always a pleasure to see you, Doctor.
Hi, Zaver. Good to hear you. I
And
can't see you.
I know I'm a bit upset today, so I've not put on. No, I was telling Bhavna before you came in the two, three things that Firstly, she told me that geriatric, the definition is from age 60, so I'm a bit surprised. I'm just about touching it. I didn't know what the term meant. But anyway, um, I've been listening to what you've been saying about the, wanting to know what the adults would like. But in my case, nobody talks about it in the house. My father-in-law has not even made a will because he thinks it's inauspicious. So where they are concerned, I guess there's no point in going there. I think for me, it's like breaking my head. But I was telling Bhavna two or three things. One is in their case, to say about pain medication. My mother-in-law is in chronic pain. She's had one knee replaced, but she still has a lot of pain and she has all kinds of pain. Basically, she had a very tough life living with this man and she's completely finished. But he will not allow her to take any pain medication and she will not take it without his acceptance. Um, my question to you is anything beyond Dolo unsafe?
It's a very difficult question to ask because I don't know whether this pain is physical pain, emotional, psychological, spiritual. It could be all rolled into
No, I
one.
think it's physical pain. If it's physical
So
pain,
if it's physical
if I
pain, then if does she have any liver condition? Does she have anything? See,
no,
Dolo
not
is probably
really.
the safest to give without seeing the patient. Anything beyond Dolo needs
Yeah, but
proper evaluation.
yeah, I know. But when you go to a specialist, they will say sometimes they will say give this myospaz or give
So I
enzoflam. Give
think, honestly speaking, where I can help you, Zavir, is A, do you have a GP?
yes, Mulchandani right down the road.
How trained is he for palliative care?
I don't know.
Okay. How
You
far
know,
are
Vishnu
you
who
from
comes to
Sukoon?
Cardiff.
How far are you from Sukoon, Nilaya, or any of those
I
where
can take her to Sukun.
then please take her to Sukoon. Let Dr. Leena Gangoli, who is one of the geriatricians they have, take an appointment in the OPD. Let her be evaluated if she's mobile.
Yes, she
Okay.
is.
Yeah. Let her evaluate her, put her on medications because she will also do mental health evaluation. And if there are some things
Okay.
that can be put
She's
as a
totally gone
patch.
into dementia, doctor now.
Sorry,
Huh?
you
I
were
said
saying.
her dementia is progressing very rapidly now.
So all the more reason she needs palliative care inputs. Let Leena, so whether this
Okay, so
pain is really a pain or it's one of those emotional outbursts in dementia patients, we really need to evaluate. So please let Leena see.
oh,
And then Dr. Vivek Pandey is a
okay.
GP who goes to people's homes. So Vivek, Leena, and I can coordinate care for your mother-in-law so that at least she's comfortable. There are lots of things we cannot
Okay,
afford
doctor. Thank
for, but at least we can care. Then coming to your father-in-law, if we can put a patch where she doesn't need to take medications, then we can work around all that so he doesn't even know what's under her dress for pain relief.
I got it.
So sometimes please remember that most the least we can hope for is that person is comfortable. There might be many things we cannot address, we cannot reverse, we cannot change your father-in-law, right? We have to create a normalcy in the given circumstances.
Dr. Leena, you said to take the appointment.
Dr. Leena Gangoli is at Sukoon Nilaya.
Okay, I'll take it.
Call them up, set an appointment, give her my reference, let her evaluate your mother-in-law, and then let Vivek look after her at home. And ideal will be if Dr. Mulchandani is down the road, we can brief him. We need everybody. The
Yeah,
more hands, the better it is.
yeah. Also, you know that I've been struggling with my own care.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm trying to get on the road to better care since I met you.
Small steps at a time.
And
You can't expect
yeah,
big changes.
at a
So,
time. I
you
was
can
telling
control
Bhavna
only
somewhere
your.
now
Huh.
that I'm approaching 60 also. And as I was telling my husband the other day, I'm tired of looking after people now. I want to be able to travel. I want to go to my children. I want to go for a holiday,
Is
but
there no
I
way
just
you can keep
cannot.
help and go?
No, my father-in-law is a very odd man. He will not eat the food unless it's been cooked by one of us. So if it's not me, it's her. And now she cannot, unless you're standing next to her, she doesn't know what to do.
And you don't have any support in terms of sisters-in-law, brothers-in-law.
Yeah, well, I have a sister-in-law, but she's got it on her own terms and conditions, his daughter.
Correct. So this is another thing which is important, I think, for family caregivers is to have a conversation with siblings living away. Proper conversation saying this human being is as much as a parent to you as to me. I have a life. I need a break. I'm happy to be the main caregiver and be responsible for this adult, for the parent, but I need a 6-week break starting Jan to this every year or this to this every year. That much they cannot do. The problem is we do not have those conversations. They assume that you will continue to look after. You have never complained. So what difference? You never asked. I'm not going to give. See, at least you need to have the conversation.
I hear
I've
you.
had that conversation. It's a very difficult conversation with my sister when she said, you know, your life depends too much on the maids. So I said, wait, if I didn't have these maids and I didn't let them make such an important part of my life, I will not even be able to go to the toilet. I
Right.
need them in my life. You are far away. Please remember that the first 15 years of my life, I have looked after 4 80-year-olds. And you have looked after two, I know, but they have become more and more independent. There's a joy
Right.
in watching a child grow. This is difficult in all sense. It's not that it is not joyful. There are lovely moments I share with them, but it is a responsibility. So therefore, since you have retired and since your kids are older, I need you to come 2 months, park yourself here. Whether you use my infrastructure or take mom to her house is your call. I will support you with the driver, maid, cook, help, everything. I need a break. I need to not know what has to be cooked next, what Amma has to be given next, what she has to wear, where she has to go. I don't want to do that. We all need a break. We all have to look after ourselves. So if not you, tell your husband to have this conversation. And my wife is not doing well. It's affecting my wife's health. Can you please do something about it? Either you come here or you take them to your house. It need not be a aggressive conversation, but it has to be had if somebody doesn't get it.
Right. No, she
And
does
it has
help
to be
me
done
out
very
whenever
politely.
possible. But it's like, just now my daughter's been diagnosed with a sleep apnea problem. She's in Bangalore. I would have got up and just gone away. But I'm beginning to become resentful, which is what I don't like.
Exactly. So you need to find your own little ways. So how do you think I survive? I get off for 2 days, one night, because I know my mother is okay 1 2 nights without me, with the maid and the help. So the whole conversation I've had with my mother is, look, I need to live my life too. I know she's a rational, practical human being, so she understands. With an irrational person, it becomes more difficult. But then you really need your actions to prove it. You can't help it. You have to also be there for your child. First of all, you have to be there for yourself.
Yeah. No, and luckily my
Then,
husband said, do what you want, get the help you need. At least I have that support.
yeah, but you also need time with him, right? He can't be the one staying back here while you are on. You need time together too, isn't
Yeah,
it?
that I got what you're saying, doctor. I'll work
So
it
we
out.
need to at least attempt to have that conversations away. It is hard, but there are people who are very selfish, who do feel it's okay. I'll go once a week for 10 minutes, have tea and get all the browning points. That's not enough, right?
Yeah. Doctor, I wanted to ask you one more question about
Yeah.
this end of life thing that I'm also hoping to finish making my living will. Um, is there any, I mean to say, I was discussing it with my children, and they said that, Mummy, supposing they said that you have to be put on the ventilator, you may have to be put on the ventilator. Maybe we want to give you that chance. So is there any way, from what I've understood is once you're on the ventilator, you can't be taken off it, right?
It's not true.
But
We do
can you
have
write that
time-tested
somewhere
trial.
that you can, I
Yes.
don't mind?
It's a time-tested trial. So there's no improvement in 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 7 days. Of course, we can withdraw care also. It is
So
allowed to
that
improve.
can be mentioned.
Yeah,
Okay.
of course.
I'm also trying to encourage Shubha to do it. So I was talking to her the other day.
I was going to
And,
ask you offline about her, but we will take this conversation. Message me.
yeah,
I would like to know. There's been zero follow.
yeah. Okay. Okay, doctor. Thank you. That's what I wanted
Take
to
care.
ask.
First, prioritize yourselves, away. Unless
Yes,
you're 100% fit, you can't be the caregiver for anybody.
no, I know. And I have to push my
Take
ass
your
and get out
breaks.
and
It's
walk.
okay. People learn. Take your breaks. Put
Yeah,
caregivers in place. Put CCTV. Put everything. Tell your sister-in-law to come and eat at least at meal times and give him the food. That much so she can do. If
yeah,
you
she
don't
will.
buy,
She will.
take your
She
break.
will.
2 days to 2 days.
Yeah,
It makes a world of difference.
yeah, I get it. Thank you.
Take care.
God bless. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. I think it is not just Zawair's question. Actually, this might be the story in pretty much many homes and for many of us. So thank you, Zawair, for speaking up, not just for yourself, but so many others. Anyone else who would like to
I think
ask?
there's a hand raised by Anuki.
Hi. Thank you, Dr. Rajam and Bhavana, for this amazing conversation. And not just the knowledge, but the wisdom that you're sharing about how to approach the emotional aspect of it. So thank you for that too. A small request, I don't have a question. If you could just share a video recording of this conversation, I'd love to share it with my mother and my aunt, who the three of us are caring for my 94-year-old grandmother who's just moved to a senior facility in Bangalore 2 months back. And initially I resisted the idea, but I went to see her yesterday and she's really in good hands. So I'm glad about that decision that my mom took on our behalf. And I'd like to share this video with them as well as a friend who has a 90-year-old mother in Chennai. So
Thank you.
if you could please share it.
Yeah.
For sure, this will be published on our YouTube channel, and those who have registered for the session will be sent an alert via email as well. I can see Gaurav has joined.
On a
Gaurav, do
video.
you have a question?
No, I mean, first of all, thank you for such a beautiful conversation. I know Dr. Rajam has to leave at 5 p.m., so maybe I can take it offline. I had a few queries which we normally encounter. One is any trusted resource on palliative care. People say, do we need to get off all treatments when we are looking at palliative care? You've distinguished between end of life and palliative care. Then some myths on aging, right? That aging is only physical,
Can't hear
So,
you, Gaurav. You went
sorry.
mute. Aging. You were at aging.
yeah. So I think the issues around, that older adults need less sleep or aging inevitably means cognitive decline, or when you are getting older, you'll definitely get into depression, stuff like that. A lot of questions people ask. And uh, so these are some of the things which I wanted to chat, but I don't know whether you have some time right now or we can take it up offline and post the responses.
We can definitely take it up offline. I just noticed the time is 5.
I know,
Uh,
I know. So that's why I
yeah.
was,
So definitely we can take it offline, and
okay.
that's not a problem at all. But I hope this was useful and I
This
didn't
was
rush you all.
not at
You
all.
didn't.
Thank you so much. You're very gracious and generous with your time. So thank you.
Lovely to see both of you.
Yes, looking forward to meet you soon. And
Yes, for a meal.
yes. Thank you for making this time, and we will catch you and we will let you know about the recording going live.
Great.
Thank you very
Thank you for this
much.
opportunity and see you soon.
Thank
And
you
love
so
to Vani.
much. Thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
both all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.